it's the bye week, so we get an entire week where we don't have to worry about the Giants, but it is going to be a big GM head coach type of week around here because not only is Joe Schoen speaking to the media, but the Giants need a new head coach, and I believe they need a new GM as well. So we're going through all of it. We're going to talk through what Joe Schoen has done well, what he's done bad. I already told you, spoiler alert, that I think he needs to be replaced, but let's talk through now some candidates that I think could be options for the Giants. Now, this is a short list because I'm very early on in my research of who I think could be good options. Also, I don't know if these guys are even going to be available. So this also could be like my Christmas wish list of like my top choices. But again, when it comes to the GM, the assistant GM and things like that, by the time January rolls around, we'll have a much better feel for this, which is crazy. It's only a month away, but we're almost there. It's almost time. So let's talk through some people that I like and the reasons why. I want to start with the Rams assistant GM, John McKay. Now, I'm going to talk about the Rams here because since John McKay has been with the LA Rams, he's been with them for 10 years. This is actually his first year as the assistant general manager. But the thing that I love about the Rams is that they consistently draft well. Now, they also have really good coaching, right? So Sean McVay is helping out, and so is the defensive coordinator, Chris Shula. So when you have good coaching, obviously it helps out the players, but we'll go through a couple names from their drafts and just what they've done that I think that he has been someone, because he spent so long with the organization, he's really learned a lot about the draft process, how to do it right, what you're looking for in players, scouting, and all of that. So just a little bit about McKay. So before he became the assistant general manager, he spent 4 years as the director of pro personnel, and he also served as the assistant director of pro scouting. So he helps manage the process for all player arrivals and departments. He evaluates all 32 rosters prior to free agency, writes advanced scouting reports for upcoming opponents, and evaluates college players prior to the draft. So he has been with the Rams since 2016. He started as a scouting assistant and basically worked his way up. In that year with the Rams, he evaluated players, submitted reports. He also tracked player news during the year, entered the information into the scouting database among numerous other specifically assigned tasks. So someone who has a lot of experience. Again, like I said, the Rams have consistently been a good organization, especially with Sean McVay there. So let's go through a couple of their draft picks now, shall we? So starting with this year, one thing that I want to note too with the Rams is that if you pull up their drafts by year, which what I have done, over the last few years, they do not have a ton of first round picks, and they've given them up for various reasons. But one of the things that I like about that is that they still have done a great job of building a team, and they also they're not afraid to not have a first round pick. Like, I love that some years they have had like 10, if not more, draft picks, and they just bring in talent upon talent. Like, one of the issues that I feel like I have so much with the Giants is the fact that they never seem to have a ton of draft picks, no matter how bad they are. And under Joe Schoen, they have had a top 10 draft pick in 4 straight years. So anyway, so some of his draft picks include... So for 2025 as the assistant GM, in round 2, they drafted tight end Terrace Ferguson. In round 3, they drafted defensive end Josiah Stewart, who I loved coming out of Michigan. So I'm very familiar with him. In round 4, they drafted running back Jarquez Hunter. In round 5, they drafted defensive tackle Ty Hamilton and linebacker Chris Paul. And then in round 7, they drafted wide receiver Konatada Mumpfield. But so that was just this year. We obviously know that the Rams have been killing it with the draft picks, okay? Last year, they drafted in the first round Jared Verse at pick number 19, who was the defensive rookie of the year last year. They also drafted Braden Fisk, who has been a beast. They've drafted Blake Corum, who's a good running back, also out of Michigan. They drafted Paka Nakua in the 5th round, who's been amazing. Even Stetson Bennett, who's been obviously like the backup quarterback there, seems like he's been learning well over there. They have Byron Young, Steve Avila. They drafted Kyron Williams in round 5, who's been phenomenal for them. I mean, the list goes on. So they're a team that has done really, really well in the draft. And I think that for someone like John McKay, who has really worked himself up there over the last few years. I really respect that he has all that type of experience. Learn from some of the best. So he's a great option. Someone else who I love is the assistant GM to Brad Holmes, who's the GM of the Detroit Lions, Ray Agnew. Now, I want to talk about him because you want to talk about good drafts. Let's just start with this. I'm going to tell you who the Lions drafted with the first round pick over the last few years. Every single one of them is a monster, okay? Number one this year was Tyleik Williams, who actually has not been as amazing as some of their other first-round picks. They drafted him with pick number 28, but in round 2, they drafted Tate Ratledge, who's also been a stud, and they drafted wide receiver Isaac Tesla, who's also been good, okay? 2024 round 1, Terrion Arnold, pick number 24. 2023, pick 12, round 1, Jahmyr Gibbs. This draft, incredible. Are you ready for this? Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Hendon Hooker. Good draft pick. Then in 2022, with their first round picks, Aiden Hutchinson, pick number 2, number 12, Jameson Williams, round 3, Kirby Joseph. Okay? 2021, round 1, pick 7, Penei Sewell, monster. We have Evan Neal. It's unbelievable. And look, you could say the first round is really easy to hit on all of them. I know. You know who has not hit on every first round pick? The Giants, under Dave Gettleman and under Joe Schoen. And look, Joe Schoen, most of his picks have been good. Yes, they've also been the easy ones. Malik Neighbors, it was either him or Odunze, and Neighbors is an absolute freak. Odunze's not a bum by any means. He's also really good. So, Evan Neal, look, every once in a while you're going to have that guy who's going to be a bust. I don't really blame Joe Schoen for that. I think it was between him, Charles Cross. I think Ekwonu might have went right before. I think he went right before at pick number 6, which was the Jets after we picked Kayvon. But, there were still other good options there. They ended up picking Neal, who sucked, but was still highly rated to go there. So anyway, the Lions drafts are unbelievable. Agnew, right-hand man to GM Brad Holmes. He's been there since 2021. He worked in personnel roles with, are you ready, the Rams. Now, he also did the Jets, but the Jets have actually had some good drafts. They just, the owner sucks and they can't figure out the coaching thing. But like Sauce Gardner, and they have Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, like the list goes. The Jets have had some good draft picks, so they just can't figure it out before then. Anyway, so him and Brad Holmes had a good relationship, and guess what? Do you know where Brad Holmes came from? The Rams! It all comes from the Rams. So anyway, great connection here. I really, really like Ray Agnew. He's got a lot of experience in the NFL. He's definitely expected to be a candidate for a GM opening, and it is possible that he ends up being one for the Giants this year. You never know. So lastly, I want to talk about the current New York Giants assistant GM, Brandon Brown. Now, the reason I want to talk about him is because he obviously has been a key piece over the last few years for these drafts and these free agent signings. Now, the biggest question that I have is, how much was his opinion valued? Because he came from the Eagles working with Howie Roseman, and we all know what Howie Roseman does and how unbelievable he is. And maybe if I do a second round of GMs, I'll include some guys from the Eagles too. But part of the reason why I have Brandon Brown on this list is because he also learned from one of the best in Howie Roseman, has great experience coming from there. So anyway, wanted to include him because he, I think, has been a focal point into some of the good players that the Giants have drafted, like Kayvon Thibodeau, brought him in free agency, but some of the good draft picks over the years. So, but like I said, I just don't know if it was always like Joe Schoen, it was like my way or the highway type of thing. Like, I don't really care. Like, if you wanted Charles Cross over Evan Neal, I'm the GM, so I'm picking Evan Neal. I will never fully know, but I just feel like from a lot of the things that I have heard and what were said about Brandon Brown, not only is he well respected in the Giants building, but he's well respected around the league, and he seems very knowledgeable and has a lot of experience. And I think he's done okay for the Giants, but like we have said, it all comes down to the GM, right? If it was Brandon Brown as the GM, would he have done things differently? The biggest question that I have had too throughout this year is if the Giants fired Joe Schoen when they fired Brian Daboll, I would have liked them to do it before the bye week before the trade deadline, because I'm really curious, again, what would Brandon Brown have done differently? Would he have actually traded for a corner? Would he have brought in a linebacker? Would he have done something different to try to salvage this season? Those are the things that I really question. And maybe we'll get a better look at Brandon Brown when Hard Knocks comes out. I'm curious what he has to say through all of this. I'm sure we'll hear from him too during that time. So it will be interesting. But I think Brandon Brown will get an interview for the GM position if the Giants fire Joe Schoen. And I think that he's deserving of that. But again, depending on who the candidates are, I'm more likely to go after someone who has really great experience in drafting and scouting, because obviously that has been a gripe with this team and with the drafts over the last couple years. And when you have a first round pick and you are rebuilding a team like the Giants were doing under Dave Gettleman and at the start of Joe Schoen, you cannot miss on those picks. And look, shit happens. It is what it is. But, we can talk about this a lot. Like, Kayvon Thibodeau is a good football player. Should he have been drafted number 5 overall? No. He's not been unbelievably impactful. And I think Abdul Carter is going to be worth that top 3 pick, but time will tell. We have to see with the new defensive coordinator and here in a new scheme how that goes. So anyway, those are my picks right now. Would love to hear from you guys. If you have any GM candidates that you like for the New York Giants, drop them in the comments, and we'll continue on with the GM head coach conversation this week.